Welcome to the Beyond the Scalpel podcast. For this week's episode, we have Burton, who is the CEO of Sciton. Sciton is one of the top laser device companies in North America and really produces some of the most outstanding devices in the market. Aaron's from Texas, and I did my fellowship in Texas. I had a great time talking to him about what got him to this point. It's such a successful company and what he thinks about the corporate culture surrounding aesthetics. So enjoy this conversation. This was a lot of fun. Hey, Aaron. How are you doing?
Good, man. Your setup looks much better than mine. You look like you've done this before. That's not fair.
Once or twice. No, I think you've done it. I think you've actually done this more than I have.
I don't know, man. I don't know. My setup's definitely not as good as yours. I'll tell you that.
Well, I like the signs in the background. I do like that. That's cool. Is this your office or your home?
Yeah, this is my home office.
Is that right?
It's interesting. I live in Dallas, but I'm based out of Palo Alto. So I travel. I used to travel back and forth a lot. So this is the home office, and then I've got my desk in Palo Alto too. So.
Yeah. So why have you done that?
I don't. This. I guess that's kind of my mantras in the background, and I always talk about mindset, hustle, help others, and then results. Are kind of the four things. It's kind of one of the corporate kind of philosophies we always talk about. Of, one, you got to get your mind right, especially in the crazy world we're in right now, and the hard work and helping other people is kind of who Saiton's always been. It's who we've always been. So I don't know. It was all books up there. I put some of the books away and added those.
Yeah, no, but I meant the Palo Alto, working in Palo Alto while you're living in Dallas. Is that
we've been in Texas so long. We just haven't wanted to move. So I just rather travel back and forth. And, it was when I became the COO, it was just an agreement we had was, hey, I don't think I plan on moving to California. I don't mind traveling. I love it there, but I don't want to leave Texas. So
yeah. Are you finding that difficult right now?
What's that?
Are you finding it difficult right now?
Not as much. I mean, I probably for me personally, because I like traveling and I like being there, but we have a really good team. Our president is based there, and, we have a lot of our leaders there. So it's been tough because I like going back and forth, but the reality is we're doing pretty darn well. So other than that part, it's working okay.
Yeah, I guess I meant with COVID. So do you find the traveling back and forth, do you have to get regular testing before you travel, or when you get there, do you got to test, or do you have to quarantine?
Yeah. California they just changed it. So it's kind of they've changed their guidelines, but I think it was just yesterday, they went into, it was actually probably last week. They went into the 14-day quarantine if you're from further than 150 miles away from Santa Clara County, which is where we're based in Palo Alto. So now I'm not going back, but before they didn't have the quarantine. So it was generally, I would more just out of precaution, I'd go get a negative test and I'd go get tested before I would go, but I didn't, but I'm not going that often now. So it's not as frequent as it used to be.
Yeah. No.
And I would imagine it probably won't be till February, I'm guessing, before I'd be back out there. So
yeah, and you could probably do most of your stuff by video conferencing.
Yeah, that's how we have 10 Zoom meetings a day. It's crazy how many meetings a day we have.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thanks for doing this with me. I'm thrilled that you're able to join me.
Andrew said really good things. He's a big fan of yours. So.
Well, I'm a big fan of you guys, actually, to be quite honest. You're in Dallas. I did my fellowship in Dallas.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. And one of the surgeons I did my fellowship with was Jay Burns. And
I love that.
Yeah, me too. And when I started practice, I'm in Ontario, and when I started practice, the first thing I did was start a laser practice, and I was trying to establish my own relationships with devices and device companies and making my choices. And first thing I did was I gotta call Jay. I gotta ask his opinion. He's the guy I trust There's nobody I trust more with regards to their experience and opinions on lasers than Jay Burns. And I don't mean this to be a commercial for him, but it's just the truth. I remember he spent about 40 minutes trying to convince me to stick with Sciton. He was like, you're making a mistake if you don't get a Sciton machine, and if you don't go with that company. And it just and it always stuck with me how, and he was really telling me from the bottom of his heart like what he truly believed, not as a consultant. And so
I think that's ultimately why he's gotten his reputation has gotten to be so good, is he's not one of the bought and paid for guys. He gives sincere, feedback, and he's a good friend of mine. Obviously we live in the same town, so I just had dinner with him 2 weeks ago. He's a good friend of mine. He's a really good guy.
But it did strike me about Sciton and the company that you do have a very loyal base of people who use the products and who are true believers, particularly about the BBL. I think it's pretty a strong, loyal following. It's a pretty clearly head and shoulders above anything else. But it is interesting. I mean, I think the people who have used your devices are really part of the group kind of thing. Like they're not using anything else.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
You hear the cliche, I guess, or the, hey, you're part of the family. But I think it really means something at Sciton, because it's rare that someone buys Sciton and then doesn't continue to buy or continue working with us. One, I mean, the devices work for a long time. I mean, they're built to last for a long time. So, if you get a BBL, which you're right, BBL is our number one selling product. It's been our number one selling product for 10 years. Halo is really good. Full field erbium, fractional erbium is good, but BBL is our number one. And it has got a big brand behind it now. And it's certainly helped us, but it lasts a long time. The hand pieces last a long time. And I think it's kind of as well as I do, it's an interesting industry we're in, where, a lot of devices are made for, to work for 2, 3, 5 years.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, I hate to say they're disposable, but because they're really not. I mean, these machines are hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they're certainly not meant to last for a long time. And companies, even the way that companies add in disposable features into each of the machines now, I think that's a new trend. Which I've noticed over the past, I don't think I noticed that before 5, 6, 7 years ago. But I go back to this. Has that always been an intended corporate philosophy for Sciton to create that level of commitment and kind of connection with their users?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, part of the reason that is our founders, Jim Hobart and Dan Negus, are both physicists. I mean, they're both engineers, or they're more on the scientist side, not on the business side. So when they build something, you could argue they over-engineer it. They're building it to last for a really, really, really long time. And our platform, as the Joule platform is designed to keep adding modules or adding new lasers. So the concept is you want a platform that's going to last a long time, because every 2 or 3 years, instead of buying a new laser, you're putting a new platform on the laser, which is probably about half the price. But you have to build them kind of like a tank if you're going to expect them to last that long and keep adding things to them. So that's been our strategy since day one. Jim and Dan wanted systems that lasted a long time. Yeah.
What about the BBL? What was the history of the BBL? How did you get something that was so different than any other IPL?
Yeah. Our R&D team, I don't always, the best description I would give to them is they're very innovative, but they're not always the first one. I don't think they always want to be the first one with the technology. They just make technology better. So, IPL came out before BBL did, and they really took what was already out there and just made it different. I mean, it's got 2 flash lamps inside of it, what makes it last a lot longer. It's got the adapters, it's got the, adjustable filters, which is pretty unique. So they really just took something and studied what was out there and learned from physicians like yourself on, what do we do different and how do we make it better? And they just listened to the physicians out there. And that's really how BBL, that's where it came from.
Yeah. Why do you think you haven't been copied? I mean, it's such an amazing device. Why hasn't somebody copied that and made an equally powerful IPL?
That's a good question. I mean, I do think there are some technologies that are really hard to copy. I'm not sure it's impossible to copy. I do think in the IPL, BBL world, our industry has moved away from it. It's kind of like it's an old technology and they want to move into body contouring and RF and microneedling RF, and we still think there's a huge market in just the energy or the light-based treatments. We're spending a ton of time just building on the BBL technology.
Well, that's an interesting point, because I have said that, and I've said that a lot, that with every, our industry is full of trends and fads, and right now there's a lot of kind of movement towards contouring and skin tightening, and some machines that may or may not be beneficial or kind of have a really significant impact, but there's so much movement towards some of these new devices. It's almost like the industry's forgotten about some of the foundational devices that have really rock solid evidence for how well they function. And I've thought about this with my own residents and my own students. When I talk to them, they'll oftentimes call me and ask my opinion, and I say, don't forget about the basic machines that have been around forever. And in particular, I do mention the BBL. I think sometimes maybe it's just because old things are boring, but it is an unbelievable machine. And again, I go back, it amazes me that something like that, and there's lots of examples of things like that just get forgotten about, and simply probably because they've been around forever. But people take a focus into another direction, which has not so much evidence, but they forget about some of the devices that have really been amazing for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, our industry, we're known for that. I mean, it's the new shiny toy. Everybody's looking for the new shiny toy and some of the great technology. And, there's other products out there from other companies that are great technology that, unless there's people like yourself or the Jay Burnses of the world that are training and teaching people on just the best technology, not the newest technology. That's what's really helped us a lot is, it's, our full field erbium is still a good seller, which some people don't even, they still think of full field CO2. When they think of that stuff, it scares them. But, full field erbium still has its place, and we still have a lot of doctors doing it. So, but that's the first product we rolled out 23 years ago, and we still have it. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. So, what do you see kind of going forward then? Tell me about your R&D and what you see. Are you guys diving into the new trends in body contouring and skin tightening as well, or where do you see Sciton going?
We're always looking for new stuff. I would definitely say that the body contouring, some radio frequency stuff. There's a lot of things we're working on. I would say there's the pieces that we really look at is we're always trying to take existing technology and how can we make it better for the provider, so whoever's doing the treatment. And how can we make it better for the end user or the patient? Is going to actually be a better result. So we're always working on existing stuff, but then there's always the blue ocean that is something brand new that people always want. So, we are always looking for a different technology, and there's definitely some gaps out there. I think body contouring has become a big thing, but there's still a lot of gaps in body contouring. There's the surgical stuff that, plastic surgeons are doing that is as good as it gets. But then there's a lot of people that don't want the downtime. And there's some good technologies out there now, but there's definitely some gaps there. On skin tightening, there's certainly some gaps. There's some products that are okay, but I don't know if I'd say there's really anybody. If you get 10 different, providers on a call and ask them what's the best skin tightening product, they'll give you 10 different answers, or they'll tell you 10 things don't work. It's interesting. We talk to, KOLs all the time, and one thinks it's okay and one thinks it's terrible. And then maybe, 10% thinks something's great. So skin tightening and, cellulite's another big one that we're always looking into of what are things we can do there. I think we have 14 things in the research. Well, we have more than 14. If you took the whole research and the development pipeline, there's near 20 projects the team's working on right now. So
how do you, this fascinates me. So how do you decide on what to have the team work on? Do you look globally at what global trends are? Because I say this to a lot of the other CEOs I've chatted with. Different parts of the world are very different in what they focus on and what they think is important. So if you looked at North America and the American market versus South America or the Asian market, you'd probably see vastly different areas that people are kind of growing towards. So as a company, how do you decide what is going to be that next thing that you guys are really diving into?
Yeah, that's not easy to answer. That's a good question, but that's a hard one to answer. because you're certainly looking at worldwide trends, and you're right. If we go to our direct operations in Japan, it's very different. What they're looking for and what our North American teams are looking for are very different. So there's certainly the trends. You're always looking at what is hot, and you want to get into that too. Microneedling RF is hot. RF body contouring is hot. I would say that our R&D guys struggle with the just go copy it because it's hot. They really want to come up with a way that they have to be able to make it better. If they can't make it unique and better, they're not going to go do it. So there's certainly, we're looking at the trends. I mean, you're looking for an opportunity where you think that you can help a provider provide a great treatment. And then is obviously a big revenue stream for the company too. And those are both win-wins. But there's a lot of products we could roll out right now that would make us a ton of money that we don't think are that great of products. We think they're just okay. So, when we talk about quality, that's one of the things our R&D people talk about. Is the product just okay, or is it a great product? And if it's not a great product, they don't want to just go copy somebody. They've got to come up with something that's better, unique, and different. And so part of it comes to how big is the market opportunity? Is it going to help the patient? And can we make something unique and different?
Well, I applaud you for that kind of stance, because I think that's great, and that's probably why you have such a strong reputation for quality. But do you fear that you will miss out if you don't jump into the fray?
All the time.
So how do you balance that? How do you balance it? Because you're not necessarily going to know what's a winner unless you're going to the dance kind of thing.
I would see that's a hard thing to answer, because I worry about that all the time. I wouldn't say that's my sense of paranoia, but I'm always thinking about, should we be getting into that? Are we missing an opportunity? And I would just say, between our KOL community and our own people, it's somewhat of a community gut feel, I guess. When we, for instance, we just rolled out something called BBL Hero, which is an enhancement or an even better version of our existing BBL that's been around for a long time. Yeah. We debated about rolling that out for a long time.
Why?
We really thought it's been in the works.
But why?
For a long time. Well, one, we weren't sure if it was good enough. This is, again, our engineers over engineering it or trying to make it better. And they kept wanting to do other things. And there's still R&D stuff with BBL right now where we're going to make it even better. But those, you don't know when they're all going to come out, but they're always trying to make something better. But you're always going, well, you already have it.
Yeah.
Is this that much different? And you're balancing resources. You go, well, we've got BBL Hero, but again, we've got near 20 other projects we could be working on. Yeah. Which one do you focus on?
Well, you're exactly right, because you've already got a product that's market leader. And right. Are you gonna put resources in to separate yourself even that much further, or are you gonna go towards RF or something else? And
right, exactly.
That's it. That's an
we have an RF
thought.
team, so we could have focused on RF, but ultimately, where really the tipping point was, we had enough people in the field just saying, wow, this is game changing. You get the feedback, and it wasn't you hear it from one person or two people. We heard it from so many people. We thought, okay, we just need to move forward. We need to put all of our resources into it, and we just doubled down. We had a team working on it, but we doubled down on who was working on it. And, and ultimately that's what happens. We have our 20 projects, and you determine which ones are going to be the most impactful. And then you kind of move those to the front, and you keep working on others. And some of the research is, clinical study stuff that takes years. So, that stuff's not going to be out for a while. But, in our business, you're rolling out products every year. One big piece is you have to roll out some big enhancement or some big new product every single year. And, that's the cadence that we try to follow too.
Yeah, I can see that. So back to this the global idea. So as a global company, where do you take your cues from? Do you pick one part of the world, or are you looking at what's happening all over?
Yeah, we try to look for what's happening all over, because like you mentioned, if you go to our Asian Pacific group, which is one of our top selling groups, what they're looking for is very different. They want different types of products. So, for us, we're looking at again, how big is the opportunity? And if we see a huge opportunity in APAC, or we see a huge opportunity in Europe, those teams definitely have an influence. And we've seen, our international, we've seen a lot of success and a lot of growth. We've gone direct in Australia. We announced that we're going direct in the UK.
That was just last month, I saw.
Just last month that we announced that. And actually the country manager is from the US and is trying to get over there. So it hasn't happened as smoothly or as we expected, but I don't even know if I would say we expected it to be smooth, but But we see a lot of international expansion. So to answer your question, we really have to listen to everybody. It's certainly not just we're not just a North American company. We're not just a US company. I mean, we've got, KOLs in our team up in Canada. We've got, people all over the world we're listening to, and you're really trying to balance all of that.
Can you talk about some of the differences between global trends? I mean, I think this is fascinating. Can you speak a little bit about what you see as being, for instance, a trend in Asia that is not the same as, for instance, in North America?
Yeah, I would say, the trends that we see in Asia, and most people, I don't know if they realize this, but to go back to BBL is but they're different skin types. And you would say it's harder and more complicated skin types to treat. Therefore, some people would go, you don't treat a, Asian skin type with an IPL or a BBL, but BBL is a booming product over there. It is very, very big. So we spend a lot of time and resources on, part of the BBL hero came from them, came from ideas and concepts over there. I remember I was in Japan last year, and I remember it was, I don't know if I can recall specifically what it was, but I remember our Japan general manager giving us ideas and concepts on things that we should be doing. So, definitely different skin types. So, treating someone who's a Fitzpatrick 1 or a 2 versus a, Fitzpatrick 4 or 5 is very different. And you have to design and build products that are specific for that. So, I think that answers your question.
Yeah.
But, Japan has certainly been, we have direct operations in Japan. So we get a lot of feedback from them.
Yeah. Now, I saw that you started out in women's health. Is that right? Within the Sciton.
I actually started as a sales rep. In 2011, I started as a sales rep here in Dallas. And then I would say my big move here at Sciton was when we created our women's health group, and Jim Hobart, our CEO at the time, now our chairman of the board, had asked if I was interested in running it. And I really thought, I don't know if I should get into that. I'm not an expert in women's health. That's not a field I know very well. So I really struggled with doing it, and it actually worked out to be a great move. The women's health group and the Diva product, which we're doing a ton of clinical research. We're working with the FDA right now. We still believe that'll be a huge opportunity for us, and candidly, it's going to be great for women. I mean, it's been a good product for us now, but clearly there's a lot of things we can't do, and we don't market for that, but we know it can treat. So we're going, more of the FDA route on those, and we expect that's probably a couple years out still, but I would just say the women's health group was a good move for me.
I just noticed that is also an area that has really grown over the past couple of years, wouldn't you say? I mean, I think across the board for most companies, recognizing that there are legitimate problems that some of these devices can help with. Yeah. Do you see that trend continuing, or is it kind of plateaued? My sense is that we've just kind of started that whole thing.
Specific to women's health?
Yeah, specific to women's health.
Yeah, no, I think that will definitely take off. I mean, I ultimately believe that field will be bigger than our aesthetics field. That we don't, we're pretty limited on, what we can say. I mean, our indication right now is for treating scars. In Canada, we have a ton of indications actually, but, worldwide, we don't have a lot of indications. So we've really gone more of the clinical study route to really, give the FDA more of what they're asking for. But that treatment we know works very, very well. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of patients that have had that treatment, and the reviews that we get and the feedback we get isn't like, getting a BBL treatment. I mean, BBL treatment is moving, and, you look better and people feel good, but, the Diva treatment is life-changing. The challenge is we know we're limited on what we can say and what we want to say and how we want to market it. So I think we're limited there.
Which specific clinical problem are you referring to?
In Canada, more specific, we can, dyspnea, dryness, lubrication, sexual function. There's a lot of indications we have in Canada, but again, in most countries in the world, we don't have those indications. So in the US, we don't market or talk about those things. But in Canada we can.
So what do you think is holding it back? Do you think it's a general unawareness that there are devices that can help with some of these problems, or is it even a not recognizing these problems are as widespread as they are?
Well, I think in the women's health community, in the OBGYN and the Urogyn community, I think it's widely known that these are pretty serious problems. And I think it's becoming more accepted. I certainly, lasers, that the OBGYN field wasn't the field like plastic surgeons or dermatologists that knew lasers very well. So I would definitely say there was a hesitancy. They were very, hesitant to accept it, but I think there's a lot more acceptance now. And as more clinical studies are coming out, and as companies like Sciton are putting a lot more clinical study money into it, I think it's becoming more accepted. But there's certainly fields that don't know lasers as well as plastic surgeons and dermatology. I think that's part of it. And when you think about it, I mean, when you think about doing the treatment with a laser, yeah, I could see how that would, someone who doesn't know, medical lasers very well, it would be concerning. I get it. So, and, so we understand why. We don't necessarily agree with it, but we understand why.
Yeah. So let's take a little bit of a detour back to you. You became CEO this past year, or was it a year ago that you took over formally?
February. Yeah, earlier this year.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
And maybe I've followed you a little bit, and I know some of these signs that are behind you. I know what's important to you and the quality and the ethic, but maybe talk a little bit about your leadership style and what you think you bring to that CEO position.
Yeah, I would think my style, or the people I work with that know me, know that, I think in our business, I think just in leadership, as you move up the ranks, I think the egos ultimately are what get leaders. And I think that's ultimately what brings people down. And, I've really tried to focus on, bringing optimism to the table, bringing gratitude to the table. Our founders, Jim and Dan, are a company that they want to share the company. We're employee owned. So all of the employees have shares, but we've tried to do more things to show that we care for our people. Like we started profit sharing, quarterly profit sharing, which was something new that we started about 2.5 years ago. We just gave out our largest profit sharing, or one of our largest profit sharing checks ever, after our Q3 results. So, if anything, I think I've probably tried to share more of what our founder and our former CEO and now chairman of the board, Jim Hobart, which is more about Sciton cares and Sciton wants to share with the people. And, when someone does well, you want to reward them. When the company does well, you want to reward them, versus I think the, CEOs of the world have this probably bad reputation of they're driving around in Ferraris and Lamborghinis and don't care about people. And while there's probably some truth to some of that, I think we all know that there are companies that truly care about their people, and rather than taking all the money and pocketing it. And candidly, Jim Hobart's the majority shareholder. He could take it all. There's no one makes us give profit sharing checks. No one makes us, share with the people. He ultimately could do what he wants, but he doesn't want the money. I mean, another thing that I've really been tasked with was, we're a 23. I always say we're a 23-year-old pre-IPO startup. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, but now one of our objectives is to go public. And the big reason for that is it helps our people. If we, as a private company, you don't have the same equity opportunities as a public company. And so the number one reason we're going public would be we want to help our people. There's other benefits too, obviously, like raising capital, but the number one reason we're doing it is to help our people.
But do you worry about losing some of that ethic? Because there's not too many CEOs of publicly traded companies that have signs behind them that say help others and and are actively promoting profit sharing to their employees, right? So is that a worry that your culture? I mean, the company has developed such a strong culture, and I think that personally, I think that's what part of why that spills over to the clientele and what people notice mostly about Sciton. But do you worry that you'll lose that?
Yeah, no, I do. That's something that certainly keeps me up at night, and we've thought a lot about, and when we talk about protecting our culture. How do we, go public? How do we become a public company but still protect our culture? And I think we've got, ways we can do that, but that is certainly a focus. Is we can't get away from who we are. We can't have investors come in and totally change the company that, or all of the things that's made us successful for 23 years. I think part of it's just being mindful of that. It's, asking and talking about that, like the question you just asked me all the time. Are we protecting our culture? Are we still looking out for our people? We have things like, our Sciton values. We have bookmarks that everybody has that have our do the right thing credo. And it's, it starts off with, trust and value people, have a heart, be kind, lead with love, be grateful, to give as they get. And we try to keep this stuff, front and center and top of mind so we don't get away from it. Because, to answer your question, yeah, I worry about it. I worry about it a lot.
I mean, I think it needs to be stressed. That's really pretty amazing. I mean, you are at the kind of at the core, you're a laser company, and you've got a motto that says "Lead with love."
Yeah.
And what an example to other companies as to how to lead and how to be leaders and really affect change in a positive way, and both your employees as well as your clientele, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one things we talk about is people ask me. I remember someone asked me this question years ago, and they said, "What would you put first, your people, or your customers?" And I didn't have to think a second about it. Our people definitely come first, because if we don't take care of our people, there's no way they're going to take care of our customers. But if you have happy people, and I can tell you, I've learned that from Southwest Airlines, and I don't even know if Southwest even flies into Canada, so you may not know them very well, but they're an airline based out of Dallas, and their whole philosophy was based on their culture and taking care of their people. And they're an example, I would say, we are the Southwest Airlines of the aesthetic industry, where we put our people first. We know our customers are important. We wouldn't be here without them. But we know that if we take care of our people, that they ultimately take care of our customers. And we definitely put our people first.
So is that your leadership style?
I would say that. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I think, my title is the CEO, but I think I'm more the chief culture officer. I mean, I think I'm more on, I just have to protect the culture. And if the two big things would be, how do I make us a public company, and how do I make sure I protect the culture along the way? And we have those conversations. It's funny you're asking that, because we have that conversation every week on the leadership. We have a weekly leadership meeting, and protecting our culture is a weekly topic.
So talk about those signs behind you then. What do they mean to you?
Yeah. So these, so I start off with the mindset. I'm always a believer that, controlling your mind. I always tell people, I think we're all in sales. Some people go, I'm not in sales. And I'm like, no, everybody's in sales, because every morning you wake up and you tell yourself something. You either tell yourself the world's terrible, the world's great, my job sucks, my job's great. Every morning you're waking up and you're selling yourself something. So I think to me, the foundation, and I can tell you, I've always told people that I believe one of the reasons I've been successful is because I keep my mind right. Even when things are going wrong, you got to control your mind. So, there's mindset. I believe in working hard. And even as a CEO, I think you got to work as hard, if not harder than everybody else. If you're not working hard, the people around you won't work hard. And the one thing I think that gets missed in business is you have to focus on helping people. And I think that's kind of one of the missed pieces is I think investors look for revenue. They want to see top line growth. And in some cases, it's whatever it takes to get there. And I think along the ways you forget, you got to help people along the way. And I'm a firm believer in a quote from Zig Ziglar, and it's you can have everything you want in life if you just help other people first. And on all of my emails, and people see it all the time, it's something I definitely preach. And the one I don't know if you can see is it over there, which is results. And I think results matter. We can always talk about reasons and excuses, but at the end of the day, and if Sciton's going to become a publicly traded company, we need products that produce results. And that's why our tagline under our logo is because results matter. And we know that if we can build a product that really produces results and isn't just okay, then we think we'll be fine. And we think we'll do well. So those are 4 things I've talked about all the time. And, every morning when I wake up and come into my office, those are the 4 things I'm thinking about every day.
I mean, it's pretty inspirational. You've got to instill this in your personal life too, no?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it ends up becoming the dinner conversation or the family conversation, or I'll plug my oldest daughter, Kaylee. She always asks. She goes, "When you do one of these podcasts, how are you going to mention my name?" She always asks me that.
The kids want to get famous, right?
Yeah. But all of the kids, Kaylee included, it's something we talk about all the time.
There we go. Sorry about that. A little minor glitch.
Technology.
Yeah. So you were telling us a story about your daughter, Kaylee.
Yeah, you were asking about it's kind of crosses over from business to personal, and the family and the kids. And Kaylee specifically, I guess we all talk to each other about when one is having a bad day or a bad moment about getting your mind right. So it's funny that Kaylee and the kids will say, "Dad, get your mind right. Stop thinking like that. Get your mind right." So it definitely crosses over.
Yeah, I mean, these are great ethical virtues that spill over into family life and raising kids and having a strong influence in young people too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your son is a football player?
He is, yeah. He plays. He's a true freshman at the University of Tulsa, so it's about 3.5 hours north of us where we're at, and he loves it. He would tell you he goes to college not for the education. He goes to college for football. The education will be one of the benefits.
Yeah, yeah,
He's there for sports.
yeah.
So,
That's good.
yeah.
Aaron, what about COVID? How did COVID affect Sciton? As a company, did you find that it affected your sales, how the company functioned? What were the big changes coming out of COVID?
Yeah, it definitely hit us. Like, I think probably like most. I mean, it was, we had our annual meeting. I remember it was March 5th. The whole company, this was really before it kind of got crazy. And it was right on the fringe of should we have the meeting or not have the meeting. We had the meeting, and like 2 weeks later, everything shut down. It was really like a punch in the face. I mean, our leadership team, and I had only been the CEO for maybe a month. Our entire leadership team started having daily calls, and it's hard to forecast. It's really hard to forecast when you don't think you're going to have revenue for 6 months. I mean, at one point, our international team and our North American leaders, they weren't forecasting sales until October. So Q2 was painful. It was not a profitable quarter. It was a struggle, but I will tell you, our leadership team did it, and I give them, I acknowledge them all the time, because they are ultimately the ones that went back to our core values and said, we're not going to fire anybody. We're not going to furlough anybody. We need to protect our people. So, the leadership team all took a 20% pay cut to start. And then we had dozens and dozens of people that volunteered their salaries. And then we ended up doing a across the board pay cut for everybody in the company. And so Q2 was pretty tough, but it was amazing how quickly it bounced back, though. And I don't know if you've seen that too in your practice, but it bounced back really quick.
So you guys were able to get through that, not have to do any layoffs, manage the decrease in sales just simply through everybody sacrificing. I mean, living up to some of these qualities.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's really where your core values in the, we call it the Saitan way, I guess, is another thing, or do the right thing credo. All of those things really played a part. And when you're faced with something that crazy and unexpected that you can't plan for, I mean, those things are the stuff that you should lean on. And our team did it. And it really said a lot that we didn't fire anybody or furlough anybody. And I got to say that the recovery, I think, was mainly because we didn't do that. If you go look at analysts' forecasts just for our publicly traded competitors, most of them are going to be way off this year, and we'll grow. We won't have record-breaking growth, but we'll grow, 3 to 5%, considering we didn't do much of anything in Q2. November, we were up 48%. So I think that's mainly because we rolled out some great products, but also because we didn't lay any of our people off. We didn't have to start over. I would say we hedged our bets, or we made our bets, and we bet on our people. And I think that really worked out for us. And so, I think it's a good story because we could have gone the other way.
Right. Now, we're not totally out of the pandemic. We're like in the beast of the belly here with the second wave. At least in Canada we are, and I know the States, the numbers are really high. Do you guys forecast any changes coming forward? Are you bracing yourself for any downturn?
The thing that our leading indicator so far has been patient traffic. On our systems, we have something called Sciton IQ. So it's really more service related, but it also tells us how many treatments our providers are doing. And it's been on our systems for about 2 years now. So we really follow that. And so far, we certainly saw the drop in Q2, but we saw it recover really fast. And when we saw the treatment volume recover, capital sales and sales recovered right there with it. And we haven't seen it fall off. Now, there's certainly different countries that have had different shutdowns. When one country is really improving, you'll see another country or another piece of a country that is going down to a total lockdown. But overall, if we look at it worldwide, we've seen it's been pretty resilient. It's been pretty impressive to watch. So right now, the feedback we're getting, from really around the world is there's still a lot of optimism. And I think that optimism is what keeps people doing treatments and coming back for more treatments, and why doctors are buying systems. If that optimism goes away, which in February, or I'd say March and April, there wasn't a lot of optimism. No one really knew what was going to happen. So there was nobody buying anything or doing any treatments then.
So Aaron, how do you track the number of treatments? Can I ask you that? How do you track how many is being done?
Yeah. So the newer systems, they have a wireless modem in them. and it's sending feedback back to our servers. And it's basically what it's telling us is giving us a lot of service information. So if there's service errors or there's something going on with the system, the technical people and the service people could call and be more proactive. But it's also telling us how many treatments is someone doing on the BBL handpiece. How many treatments have we done on the erbium head? How many halo treatments have been done? So it gives us specific data so we know, treatment volume. So if we compare the two year over year, it's impressive. The average treatment per system is up year over year.
Is that right? And that's globally?
That's globally. Yeah, we've definitely seen different, parts of North America and definitely parts of different countries where you'll see it fall off. But overall, if you take our overall treatments worldwide, it's up year over year.
And the Hero, you brought out the Hero in the fall, and this fall, and that was released. Was that intended, or were you supposed to release that earlier in the year, but it got delayed because of COVID?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We were planning originally to launch it in March, and then we decided to hold off, and we didn't. I guess we rolled it out into the summer, I think it was. It's probably been out there 2 or 3 months now, and we strategically thought this is probably not the right time to roll out a new product, so we just rolled it out.
Well, it's a great product.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it's one. IPL. I mean, most people are scared of lasers, but IPL and BBL it's not an easy treatment either. And really, the concept with Smart BBL was one. It was allowing people to do treatments anywhere on the body and all over the body, but also to do it quickly and safely. And if you have a provider or a nurse or an esthetician or even a physician that doesn't know the system, you've got to be careful with an IPL or a BBL. So that goes back to one of the things I mentioned earlier. We're trying to make things better for the provider and then better for the patient too. And that's what BBL Hero is. It really makes the treatment easier because for the provider, it's really fast, but it's also safer.
Okay, Aaron, what do you see as the future of Sciton?
Well, I mentioned our intent and our plan to go public. So I think that we plan to do that, and our goal is to do that by 2023. So we're really heavily focused on that. But I think the two keys to that are always focusing on our people, and then always rolling out new products and constantly rolling out new products. So those are the two main things we stay focused on. So I would say the next couple of years, I mean, our product pipeline is pretty strong. I think you'll see some big things coming out. Some of those will be enhancements and improvements. There's a couple that'll be radically different. It'll be, somewhat, people always use the term game changing, but it'll just be very different. And, I think that's, so I think we've got some good stuff coming in the next couple.
Can you give us a hint about what that might be?
I probably should not. I'm trying. I would have to think. You
gotta tell us something. Just give us a hint, Aaron.
I know you've got to ask that question, but
give me a little, just something. Just give me something.
Yeah. Well, I would say that the one there's two of them, but one of the ones I'm thinking of, I wouldn't call it blue ocean, meaning it's radically different in a sense that it's no one's even thinking of it or nobody knows a laser wavelength. I would say it's a radically different way of doing a treatment. And again, that's a big piece of, we like the whole blue ocean and everybody wants something that's completely new and different, but we are heavily focused on making things better too. And this one is going to be something that's going to make it even better. And I think the providers will love it. And then in the end, the patients will love it too.
And when's that coming out? When can we expect that?
In the R&D phase, I've learned real quick, you can't forecast those things. We are forecasting it for sometime next year. But I've learned those things are somewhat of a moving target. So you need to have a bunch of balls in the air and, you hope they all roll out when you want. But we anticipate that one and another one next year.
And how about you personally? You've just taken over this position. I know you love it. I mean, I think you were born for this position, I think. But tell me what's in store for you. What's coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a lot of the same. I mean, you've brought up some things that keep me up at night on a pretty regular basis, which, when you go from being a private company that's employee owned to becoming a public company, that's pretty stressful in itself because, like you said, you're trying not to change the culture. And, how do you become a public company but still have that family feel, that we have right now? And, that's ultimately my focus. There's a lot of other things along the way that, I'm looking at or thinking about, but those are really the two big ones is, how do we become public, which we've committed that to our people and now we need to go do it. And how do we protect our culture, which I think those two things in itself are a full-time job.
Yeah.
Plus, doing things for our people, rolling out new products, watching revenue and income, all those things are important too. But those are the top two, are becoming a public company and protecting our culture. I think that'll keep me pretty busy.
What's your personal favorite treatment?
I would have to say it's a mix between BBL and Moxie. And Moxie we rolled out earlier this year too. And I would say Moxie probably wins because I've had more of those treatments. I think I've had 5 or 6 Moxie treatments. And I've had 2 or 3 BBL treatments and maybe 1 Halo treatment. So I think that probably tells you Moxie. If I've had 5 or 6 of them, that one probably wins. So
yeah,
that would be.
I got to say I love the BBL. I mean, I think I talk about it endlessly, but I personally got to say that I love that BBL treatment myself.
It's hard not to love it. I mean, for sure. My question for you is, have you ever done a treatment on yourself?
You mean held the handpiece myself and fired it on myself?
Yeah.
No, not because I wouldn't, but I never thought to do it. But I wouldn't put something like that past myself to do.
I've seen a lot of people that they say it's their favorite treatment and they do it on themselves. I'm like, wow, I've never done that either, but I see a lot of people do that.
That is funny. What's your daily routine, Aaron?
It's certainly different now than it was, earlier this year. But, I usually do a lot of traveling. So I'm going back and forth between California and Texas. But, pre-COVID, I used to be a really early person. My schedule has changed a lot. Now I get up, 7 or 8, but I immediately read a book. I'm usually reading something and, having a coffee. And then, being a West Coast company in Texas, you work till 7 or 8. So, my routine is definitely different than it was traditionally. But, I will say one thing is I always start with reading a book. I mean, there's always some book I'm trying to read and something I'm trying to study. And as we're, changing the kind of company we are, I'm trying to study as many other companies as I can, learning what they did right and wrong. And usually my morning time is the best time, where the phone's not ringing and the emails aren't going crazy. And, it's my free time to catch up.
How do you keep yourself healthy?
I'll tell you, my wife does that, to be honest. She's a health nut. So I always say when I travel, I gain 5 pounds. When I stay at home, I lose 5 pounds. So I have to give my wife, Nani, the credit for that. We eat very well. We have a gym in the garage that we use on a pretty frequent basis. And we run the dogs, once a day or every other day. And I think that's certainly part of keeping your mind right, I think, is keeping your body and staying healthy too. And I think, when you get caught up in work and you get caught up in travel, you can forget about those things. And while, I'm committed to work and to Sciton, I'm not committed to giving up on other stuff either. And that's, your health is really important, as you know, and, we definitely stay focused on that.
Yeah. Would you give a piece of advice to some of the young people that are coming up in the aesthetic industry and trying to create their own careers? What would you say to them?
I will tell you, it's something I learned very early from a gentleman named Bob Brindley. And I remember him and another gentleman named Matt Toronto both taught me that what you really need to do at the beginning, one, you've got the mantra I always talk about keep your mind right and hustle, but they really taught me about building a brand and build your own personal brand. Sciton is itself, or whatever company, somebody works for, that brand in itself represents you. So you want to go work for a company that makes you look good, for sure. But I learned that my brand was really important, that my brand represented Sciton, and that people were going to buy from me as much as they were going to buy from, and they buy from people as much as they buy from the, the actual equipment providers. So they, if they don't like the sales rep, or they don't like the people they're in front of, or don't believe those are people that want to have a partnership with them and help them, they're moving on to the next, the next laser, even if that was the best laser out there. So I would say focus on building your brand, and your brand is heavily built on ethics and doing the right thing and helping people. And I learned that early in the game, and I was grateful that Bob Brindley and Matt Toronto taught me that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the age of social media, if it's done one thing, it's almost created this awareness of anyone that they are a brand, and making people astutely aware of their own brand every time they're on, social media or presenting themselves. And it's kind of an interesting phenomenon, really.
It is. And, pre-Sciton, so I started in 2011 and I wasn't even on social media before Sciton. When they said that is when I got into Facebook, and I assume I got into Instagram at some point, but that was when I thought, well, if I'm going to build my brand, social media is going to help me do it. And, obviously it is crazy. It's the amount of influence that social media has on the world these days. It's crazy, but but it works. I'll tell you, it works.
Yeah. I ask everybody, tell me, what is the one global issue or worldwide issue, whether it's political or apolitical, that really resonates with you, especially in this age of people arguing over everything and being partisan. What is the one thing that you would really want to tackle?
That's a pretty deep question.
Yeah, I know. I bring it down. I bring it deep.
Yeah. But one thing I like about this is we didn't really prep, and you didn't ask me that, but I know exactly what my answer is. And I think to piggyback on what we just talked about in the world of social media, in this world of politics, and the world of media, and you don't know what's real and not real. I think people lack empathy. And I wish people had more empathy and would really start to understand other people's viewpoints. I think we're all just quick to judge. I think we want to judge people and think that other people are terrible when they probably have some reason for what they're doing. And there's some, so I guess ultimately I wish people had more empathy, or people would think about that. Meaning I wish they would try to look at it from someone else's viewpoint instead of just judging someone, or instead of seeing something on social media and letting it bother them or get upset by something. If they would almost just tap the brakes and stop and think and go, I wonder why they're saying that. And in a world that's all about politics, there's no empathy in politics. It's hard to watch. There is no empathy in that. And, politics is not, to me, the real world. That's not how a business is run. I mean, it's not. And so I think it's tough to watch some of that stuff, but really good question. But I would definitely say more empathy.
Well, I mean, I love hearing that. And I got to be honest with you. I love the fact that you and how your core values are so strong, have taken on the CEO position of such an important company in our industry.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure chatting with you, Aaron. Thanks so much for coming on. I hope that maybe when you're ready to make this game-breaking announcement, that you'll give me a call and give me a heads up, and we can chat about it before you let anyone else know.
Yeah. I'll make a deal with you. Once we can start traveling again, which I am sure, or I hope by then, travel becomes more normal again, I will come visit, and I'll tell you myself, because I'd love to come visit, and two, I will commit that I'll tell you about it first. So.
Well, you know what? I'll take you up on that, and we'll have a live podcast in person. How's that?
I like it. Sounds like a plan.
All right. Thanks so much, Aaron.
It was good talking to you.
You too. Take care.